Hey, y'all. Welcome in to the Bud Light Ingredients for Saints Success live chat ahead of week 7. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Radio's digital sports producer, getting you ready for Monday Night Football. It has been 15 days since we last saw the Saints play football. It's felt like longer, but we're back where we've been all season long, which is on the road. The Saints have played they're about to play their 6th game. They're about to play their 5th road game. This time it's in Seattle. This time, instead of a hurricane, they get a bomb cyclone. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that name before, because I hadn't until this week. What I have learned about a bomb cyclone is it is very much not the same as a hurricane. It is a storm system that will bring a lot of moisture, a lot of wind, but not crazy wind, not the type of wind we've been accustomed to throughout hurricane seasons. So it's not going to be a huge factor in the game, but it will be a factor in the game. You're going to have weather issues to contend with. You're going to have to figure it out in the passing game. You're going to have to figure it out in the run game. I think that's where that's going to manifest most. You're going to see Alvin Kamara probably get leaned on a bit in this one, especially if the weather is as bad as it could be. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Bud Light, Ingredients for Saints Success. Ingredients proudly displayed on the label. You have hops, barley, water, rice. I'm working, but you should definitely make sure and enjoy one of those, the official beer of the Saints, before we get into the action, which the action will be kind of weird. Saints-Seahawks is this traditional competitive matchup of two kind of blue blood teams, of winning teams, playoff teams, Super Bowl champions of the last a few decades. But this is a much different matchup. This is a matchup that doesn't have Russell Wilson. It doesn't have Drew Brees. It doesn't have Michael Thomas. It doesn't have Chris Carson. It doesn't have a lot of players on the Seahawks side. And I think that they're in a much more difficult injury situation than the Saints are, but the Saints are obviously in their own injury difficulties. But hey, good news. Guys are coming back. Reinforcements are arriving in week 7, most notably on the defensive side of the ball. You're getting Marquez Davenport, defensive end, back. You're getting Quan Alexander, linebacker, back. Both played in week 1 in that win over the Packers, where the Saints defense looked stellar, looked like they couldn't get scored on if you played 8 quarters there. And they are back. They have returned from IR this week. They got back to the practice field. They were among that group of 7 players that got back to practice. Those are the 2 defensive players that'll play. Along with them, you have Traquan Smith, wide receiver. He's much more of a wild card. We did not see him in week 1. We did not see him for much of training camp. He had a leg injury that kind of lingered. He missed a majority of camp. He was out there for the first few practices, had that leg injury, tried to come back, appeared to have injured it worse, or it just didn't get better, and he ended up starting the season on IR. So a big piece of the Saints offense, a guy we expected to be a major piece in the Saints offense, is returning for week 7. It'll be interesting to see just how much work he can take on coming back from that injury. Is a lower leg injury. It's one of those injuries that you can re-injure, right? You have to be careful with how you come back from it. So I would expect him to be on something of a pitch count. It's not like he broke his arm and you're not worried about, he can't tweak that anymore. This is any soft tissue injury. You have to be careful. And I don't think the Saints are going to throw caution to the wind just because they need a wide receiver this week. And I think that's what you saw kind of manifest a little bit in the call-up of Kevin White from the practice squad. Kevin White will be active for this game. Former first-round pick, a guy people were very excited to see the Saints bring in at the beginning of the season. He is active today. So that'll be something to watch. First, I want to remind y'all, make sure you throw your comments, your questions, your hot takes, your cat's name in the chat. I'll get to him in the back half. First, I want to play a couple interviews for you here. The first is Sean Payton talking about said passing attack. And he kind of went into a bit of, what have you seen from the players on the outside, the players that you expect to make big plays from, that intermediate deep passing game where the Saints have hit a few deep shots, but have not been very productive, not been very efficient. They've been very efficient in the red zone, but they haven't gotten there as much as Sean Payton would have liked. Deontay Harris is the team's leading receiver. He is not active this week. Taysom Hill has been one of its go-to guys, especially in the middle of the field. He is not active this week. Both are out with injuries, suffered in week 5. So let's hear what he had to say on that subject.
Deep balls, and I don't want to just clump them all together. They're obviously down the field. You could start with there's a post element to it, but I think, Mike, I think there's certain things that when each week we cover the shot plays that we want to carry into the game, and what the looks are, and like how we want to get to them. And I do think the receivers involved have begun to learn, hey, just keep running, it's going to get there. A lot of times early on, a receiver will think I'm going to throttle here, and then all of a sudden it goes over their head. So I think it's a confidence, and then you hit one, and then you hit another, and then pretty soon you expect to hit one each week.
Kind of surprisingly, I guess, you guys have a low number of overall runs and passes of 20-plus yards this year. You think that's just a small sample size, or are there things in self-scout?
Yeah, I don't know. The good news is I don't have to bring the report card home to my mom right now.
I love that quote. The good news is Sean Payton does not have to bring the report card home to his mom right now. And I think what he's saying there, and I think it's pretty clear what he's saying there, which is there's room to grow here, especially when it comes to these 15, 20, 30-yard pass plays downfield where you're trying to get chunk plays. You're trying to turn the momentum of a particular drive, a particular series, a particular game. And they just haven't been there. The Saints have hit a few. They've hit 2 deep balls to Deontay Harris, one in week 1, one in week 5 against Washington. They hit a big time Hail Mary to Marquez Callaway. I don't even know if I want to include that in the deep passing game because it's a completely different situation. It's called a Hail Mary for a reason. But there's a lot to wonder about on the outside. And you can put it into Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is not one of the players back this week. Nick Vannett, Ken Crawley, Chase Hansen and Will Lutz are all eligible to practice. They were able to get back. They're all eligible to practice. Every one of that group but Michael Thomas has gotten back to practice. None of them are going to play this week. Chris Hogan also retired, which kind of made some space for the guys coming back from IR. But, Traquan Smith is the guy who you expected to be that kind of field stretcher. You heard Jameis Winston talking about him in the preseason of, keep running. Even if you're a clear out, even if you're a decoy on a play, keep running, because if I work my progressions and I get to the backside and you're open, I'm going to chuck it. And he hasn't been there. He hasn't been active. Marquez Callaway, I think, has done an excellent job kind of finding his way in a role that he was not expected to have to play. But there's been a clear lack of field stretching, and Deontay Harris, as good as he's been, you do have to keep him, I don't want to say on a pitch count, but you have to be smart about how you use him, because if he gets hurt, you not only lose a pass catching weapon, you lose probably the most elite return weapon in the game. And that's what you have this week. If you remember, the last time the Saints went to Seattle, what was the key play that really got the Saints off on the right track? They were in a very, very difficult situation. First game without Drew Brees, started by Teddy Bridgewater. Deontay Harris returns a punt for a touchdown. That was the point that the Saints took control of that game. They also had a scoop and score by Von Bell. But losing that return weapon is a big thing. And so it's going to come down every year when you're talking about Deontay Harris. How much work do you want him to get, knowing that if you overwork him as a receiver, you could lose him as a returner? He's 5'6". This is a hamstring injury. This isn't a durability thing, but it's always going to be something you keep in mind. And Taysom Hill the same way. He's taking a lot of hits. How many hits are you willing to let him take? Alvin Kamara, same question. It's a long season, 17 games this time around. I think the Saints have been very proactive in getting guys healthy. Do I think that every player that went on IR necessarily had to go on IR? Absolutely not. Do I think they should have played through it? Probably not, right? Do I think they could have played through a few of these injuries that they had? Yes, of course. That's not necessarily a good idea, but you'll see people do it. But you have to weigh, do I do this now, or do I allow them to be in a situation where they could get hurt worse and we could lose them? Right? You have to always weigh that decision. And that's something that the Saints are going to have to continue to weigh when it comes to Deontay Harris, Taysom Hill, all these guys. I think the Saints were really upset with how they finished last season in a few respects. One being you lost in the divisional round of the playoffs as a shell of the roster that you thought you were going to have. You didn't have, by the end of that game, you started without Taysom Hill, without Latavius Murray. By the end of that game, you did not have Deontay Harris. We now know that Michael Thomas was significantly hurt, was significantly hampered. And the only thing you can hope for as an NFL team is you are able to go out and win or lose, do it in a way that is representative of what you are as a team. And the Saints were not able to do that last year. And I think that there's a very, very, very heavy emphasis on making sure that does not happen again. So that's where we have it right now. And so we're bringing 3 players back. We have 4 left on IR. Michael Thomas is still on the PUP list. David Onyemata should get back next week from suspension. It only goes up from here. This is an important game to win. Let me get one more here. Let's hear from Deuce McAllister, who's talking about the Saints receiving game as well. Let's see. I think this is it.
So how do Seahawks fans view the Saints? I mean, because it's like 2 different countries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, I don't know if the Seahawks fans are really that worried about who the opponent is, because of this team is just in such uncharted waters. The discussion is, how are we going to survive this season being already 2-4, and we don't have Russell Wilson at quarterback, and the defense is not playing very well, even though it did play a little better against Pittsburgh. So I think it's one of those things right now where it's just they've got to win a game. It doesn't matter who it is Monday. It could be Riverside High School or whatever. If you fall to 2-5 and the Rams and the Cardinals are each huge favorites at home against the teams that they are, and if you fall to 5 games back in the division, you can completely kiss off the division. And at 2-5, even getting back to 500 and getting in the wild card race is going to be hard. So it's really that. That's what the discussion in Seattle is right now. So no offense to the Saints, I'm sure you want to hear me say they really think a lot about the Saints.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not going to lie and say that anybody's talking that much about the Saints. It's more
they're more worried about their team.
Yeah.
Okay, I played the wrong clip there. I teased Deuce McAllister. I played Bob Cantata, reporter for the Seattle Times, which is a good thing because it helps me kind of get to my next point, which is this is a desperate Seattle team. There's no Russell Wilson. You have Geno Smith at quarterback. There is no Chris Carson. You have Alex Collins at running back. The Seahawks also activated Rashad Penny, former first-round pick. So there's a chance you see him today. They made a few other roster moves, none particularly significant. But this is a desperate Seattle Seahawks team. They are in a division with an unbeaten team the Arizona Cardinals at 7-0. They can't afford to lose this game. You never want to be the team showing up at another team's stadium favored, and the other team is a good team and desperate for a win with a good head coach, a good coaching staff. It's going to be a hard-fought game. It is going to be a game that the Saints have to grind in. And for no other reason than the Seahawks know they can't score 40 points. They're not going to. If the Seahawks win this game, it's going to have to be ugly. It's going to have to be low scoring. And that's where the Saints really need to execute. They need to possess the ball. They need to score when they get the opportunity to score. And that's something that has helped allow a team with all these injuries to get to 3-2. Despite all of these challenges, they're 13 out of 14 in the red zone in terms of scoring touchdowns. That is unheard of efficiency in the red zone. And that needs to continue until you can get some of these pieces back. If Traquan Smith can come out there and be a bit of a weapon, I think, you could probably survive a little more inefficiency in the red zone, maybe kick a few more field goals. But as far as we know, the Saints still can't kick a field goal. Well, Lutz is not back. Brian Johnson out there for his first career NFL game. I'm sure that won't go badly at all. But let's see. Let's get to some questions here. So a question about Kevin White from 007. Are you the real 007? I don't think you would tell me if you were. Anyway, Kevin White, he is called up to the active roster. He's active. You wouldn't call that guy up and put him inactive. There's no reason that you would call a wide receiver up and have him inactive when you just lost Chris Hogan and you don't have Deontay Harris. He's there. I don't know how many snaps he's going to get. I don't know how much action he's going to see, but he's there. I would imagine that he's going to get on the field in some respect. I imagine he's going to have a role on special teams. I didn't see much from him in the preseason to get me super excited about what Kevin White can do in the Saints offense, but he's a weapon. I mean, he's a guy. He's an athlete. He went in the first round for a reason. He can impact games. It's just going to be a matter of how much opportunity he gets and what he does with them. He had a few drops in the preseason. in an opportunity to separate himself on a roster that didn't have a ton to offer at the wide receiver position. He was unable to do it. So I think he's there for depth. I don't think you're going to see a ton from him. I would still expect Kenny Stills, Marquez Callaway to be kind of in that trio with Traquan Smith, and you go from there. But the depth at running back, I would say, is a lot more concerning than the depth at wide receiver. You don't have Dwayne Washington. You don't have Tony Jones Jr., who is on IR. And I think the guy who might show up today that people are not expecting is Devin Ezigbo. He was signed before last week, very short period of time to learn the playbook, to get inclined with what the Saints want to do on offense. And I think he saw 2 or 3 snaps. He didn't get a touch, but they brought him back because they think that he can pick up the offense. He's been in it. He was an undrafted free agent by the Saints. So I would expect to see him in some role. I don't know how much, but I would expect to see Devin Ezigbo get some touches tonight. And it'll be interesting to see if he can make an impact, because, losing Tony Jones this season, having already cut Latavius Murray, is a big loss. I mean, like I said before, you have to weigh workload. You have to weigh injury risk. And I would argue the player on this team that you can least afford to lose is Alvin Kamara. So how much work are you going to give him? Is he going to be back there returning punts like he was in week 5? Is he going to get 26 carries like he did in week 4? No, I don't think you want to see any of that. I think you want to figure out a way to make sure when he's getting hit, it is a time that he needs to get hit. That it is a time where it is worth taking that hit in week 7. And I don't think that punts are where that are going to be where that is. But so Kevin White, maybe he can return, maybe he can do some other things, but I don't think you're going to have a huge game from him either way, but he will be out there. Good game for Callaway to step up. Yeah, I think this is going to be one of Marquez Callaway's last opportunities to play the true X position in the Saints offense, assuming Michael Thomas gets back, which, I'm optimistic that he will. It's hard to say because it feels like it's been so long since he's been on the field, but when Michael Thomas is healthy, he's still Michael Thomas. So this is going to be one of Marquez Callaway's, hopefully, last chances to really kind of dominate that X position, but he will continue to be a very useful player to have after this one. But if he can impact this game, I think the Saints win. I think the only way the Seahawks win is if the Saints passing game just gets completely torpedoed by the pressure, by the coverage. Jameis throws a few interceptions, and the Seahawks can get enough going on the ground to possess the ball. But yeah, I think the Saints need to make sure that they target Marquez Callaway early and often on these little dig routes, on these little sticks to move the chains and hold the ball. Yes, Lutz is still out. He returned to practice this week. He's still recovering from that offseason core surgery. I think him getting back to practice is more important than any of the other players on IR, just because, you need to be able to get him into game shape. Kicking is a specialty, and you have to work on it. I think a lot of these guys could show up on a Wednesday anytime and do their job pretty well. I don't think a kicker is in that category. I think it takes a lot more to get back into the zone where, a 55-yard kick for the win is not going to phase you. That doesn't drop out of thin air. It's a process. It's a technique thing. And it's going to take a few weeks, I think, for him to get back. And that's why you have Brian Johnson out there, who I honestly couldn't tell you anything about him. But he's going to get a chance to kick, I think, and we'll see what happens. I would expect, week 9 maybe for Lutz, but that's just a guess. The good news is anyone who is designated to return, which Will Lutz has, you have 21 days from that point to activate them to the roster. So there is a ticking clock, right? It is not an inevitable, or it is not an indefinite thing where they're just practicing and can't play. It is 3 weeks maximum. So all these guys should be back by week 10, worst case scenario. The only one we don't know about is Michael Thomas, because he's on the PUP list and he has not been designated for return as far as I know. And Tony Jones Jr., who is not eligible to come off IR until next week at the earliest. So, but yes, Will Lutz is back to practice. He's not playing tonight. Davenport is playing in this game. I think you're being more metaphorical there, and he needs to have a big game. I think that Marcus Davenport needs to stay healthy. I would be fine with him leaving this game, playing 35 snaps, not getting a single pressure, not getting a single tackle, not getting a single sack, and just showing up to practice on Wednesday with a FP next to his name. That's enough for me. I just need to see this guy get through a few games healthy, because when he's healthy, he is an impact player. When he's healthy, he can make quarterbacks run for their lives. He's a beast. Just needs to survive. So that's what I want to see from Marcus Davenport. I want to see him go out there. I want to see him be effective. And I want to see him walk off the field under his own power. That's what I need to see from Marcus Davenport. And I hope that that's the case, because when this Saints pass rush is healthy, it is almost impossible to stop. Peyton Turner will not be playing this week. He has a calf injury, the rookie. I don't know how much you're going to see Pete Warner this week, another rookie with Quan Alexander back in action, but I still think you're going to see a good bit of base, more base than you would normally see from the Saints, just trying to get all three of those guys in. The Saints made a few running back moves. I don't think you're going to have a huge impact from them. Let me just make sure I got them right here. None are listed on the active roster. Hold on. Maybe I'm crazy. Did I forget? Anyway, well, currently you're looking at Devin Azigbo and Alvin Kamara as being the main running backs. You might end up with a last second active report. The Saints haven't posted their inactives yet for some reason, but you'll see it. Yes. I'm not sure. He's not hurt. Ty Montgomery. I don't know if you're saying at running back. He will not be. He could see snaps at running back. He has played running back, but I don't think that's where the Saints want to put him. They made him a wide receiver for a reason. And, I think something that happened that the Saints were not planning for is Ty Montgomery has become one of the best gunners you'll find. He's been a machine in the punt return game, along with Blake Gillikin. If you remember, so Blake Gillikin down 3 punts inside the 3-yard line. The third one, Ty Montgomery was down there at the goal line, downing that ball, I think at the 2. So yeah, he's going to play. And even if he doesn't see a ton of action on offense, which I imagine he will, he's always going to be an impact down at the goal line or down covering punts, covering kicks. The other thing I did not mention yet, which I should, Eric McCoy, Teron Armstead should play. They did not have a game day designation. They were limited in practice all week, but they did not have game day designation. So that indicates they're expected to play. I don't know if they're going to start. That's a question, obviously. But if you can get Eric McCoy back at center, you can get Teron Armstead back at left tackle. That not only makes you better at those positions, it makes you better behind those positions, because it allows Cesar Ruiz to move back to guard, and it allows James Hurst to return to that kind of swing tackle role where if Ryan Ramczyk needs to come out for a play, he can go in there. With him starting, you don't have that luxury. You're a man down. You keep going down the wire. So those guys should be back, and they should be. The question is, how effective can they be? Hopefully they've been able to stay in shape. I think Teron, with an arm injury, would have had a much easier time staying in shape than McCoy with a leg injury, just because of what you're able to do with those injuries. But both of those guys are going to be interesting to watch. Taysom Hill is not healthy. He's healthy in the sense that he has health, but he is still recovering from the concussion he suffered in Week 5 against Washington on that catch downfield where he kind of got speared in the helmet. He is not active, nor is Deontay Harris. Yeah, I think the Saints match up about as well as you could hope to with the Seahawks in terms of what they want to do. They want to isolate DK Metcalf. They want to get Tyler Lockett down the field. They like to get him out on deep posts, get him behind the defense. And, I think you're going to see Marshawn Lattimore shadow DK around the field and try to shut him down. I think that'll be a good battle to watch. And you're going to see a lot of deep safeties because I think the Saints are comfortable that their front seven can stop the running game without any help, without any additional help, without any exotic blitzes. I don't think you need to put a ton of pressure on Geno Smith. I think you need to force him to beat you, and then you adjust. If he can beat you in your base package, in your cover two-man type defense where you got man-to-man on the outside, you got two deep safeties. If he can beat you in that, or if the running backs can make enough hay inside, then you adjust. But until he proves he can do that without turning the ball over, I'm not coming down. I'm letting him drive between the 20s all he wants because I don't believe that he can beat me in the red zone. And I don't see any reason to deviate from that. That said, who knows? Maybe Dennis Allen will throw caution to the wind in the rain and come after him, but I just don't see why you would. I don't see why you would make life easier on Geno by, allowing his receivers to get into one-on-one down the field and make plays on the ball. That's what I would guess is a lot of deep zones. Don't get beat over the top and make him make the right reads underneath and make the running backs beat you, which you shouldn't have faith that they can. Well, I'm glad you brought up the tight end because I did a film study on the tight end earlier this week. It's over at youtube.com/WWL Sports. It's if you just go to the channel, I'll pop it up here. It is the featured video. And I kind of broke down a bit of what has been slowing down Adam Troutman because the Saints do have a tight end. They do have a good tight end. He's being asked to block right now a significant amount of time. And I think that getting Teron Armstead back, getting Eric McCoy back, getting Cesar Ruiz back to his original position will help. And I think getting Nick Vannett back will help. But currently, Adam Troutman, if he estimated, would say he's blocking on 35 of every 50 snaps he's out there on the field. I mean, how much of an impact can you expect to have when you're run blocking? I mean, you can have a big impact run blocking, but you're not going to have a receiving impact run blocking. Those things can't happen. And that's been the case. We saw the Saints offense get a little opened up this last week against Washington, or 2 weeks ago against Washington. And Adam Troutman had his best game of the season. He had two really nice plays. One was a choice route into the red zone, and the other one was a 32-yard gain from about midfield, where he kind of just leaked out of the backfield, got across, and just turned upfield into wide open space, made a nice play on the ball, carried it upfield, broke a tackle. And I think when you see a guy do that, when you see the type of plays he can make, the question becomes, why aren't you making those plays? Not why can't you make those plays? Because we saw him make those plays. So I think it's really for Adam Troutman, it's a question of when do you start opening up the offense? I don't think that'll be today because it doesn't have to be today. And the Saints are more worried about winning this game than they are sorting out the tight end position. And I think that's just what you have. But all right, we're about 90 minutes from kickoff. Maybe, well, no, it's 7:15 on Monday nights. We're about 65 minutes from kickoff, whatever you want to say it is. Make sure to check out the final hour of the pregame show over on WWL Radio with Christian Garrick and Bobby Hebert. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Radio digital sports producer. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, over on Facebook, on Twitter at WWL-AMFM, and over on Odyssey.com/WWL. Also, the Odyssey app, WWL AM 870, FM 105.3. We have a lot of things to tout, so I appreciate you sticking with me. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Bud Light. You are watching the Bud Light Ingredients to Saints Success live chat with the ingredients proudly listed on the label. Yes, I've almost memorized all of these ingredients, guys. It's hops, barley, water, and rice. Do you think maybe if I write it on my hand, I'll get it. But I think that's about it for me. We got another take on Vannett. Need Vannett to be back and blocking so Troutman can start being a pass receiver. Yeah, I agree with that. I think when you're talking about a guy who can block, which Vannett can block and Troutman can block, I think having a guy who you trust in those blocking situations and you can put Troutman in more advantageous receiving situations will only help him impact the offense. And I think that's what you have, and that's what you're seeing. But Adam Troutman doesn't mind run blocking. He said he loves it. So, hey, that's a good thing. Who's the backup running back? As far as I know, you're going to see Devin Azigbo as the backup, but I think you're going to see a whole lot of Alvin Kamara. You're not So that was weird. Okay, I got kicked out there. You're gonna see mostly Alvin Kamara. It's not going to be a two-back system the way it has been with Tony Jones. It's going to be Alvin Kamara, and a spell of Devin Azigbo where you get it, I think. But beyond that, it's going to be mostly Alvin Kamara. And unless this game gets a little out of hand, which it could, it very well could. I expect the defense to dominate here. I don't expect it to be a high-scoring game. I would put it at about 24-15, 24-14 in that range. I think we had a score prediction up here. Saints 24, Seahawks 10. Yeah, I'd say that prediction should be about accurate in my opinion. We will close with the bomb cyclone question. Who do you think has the edge in a Lattimore versus Metcalf matchup? I mean, until Marshawn gets punked, I don't see how he wouldn't get the edge in any matchup. Right. I mean, I think that he is one of the elite cover corners in the NFL, and that's one of the benefits of having him. I'm more concerned about Lockett because I think whenever you have a guy like Lattimore, assuming he's healthy, he can take away your top receiver. So I'd say the Saints have the edge in the Lattimore versus Metcalf matchup, and it's a question of can the Seahawks do enough with the other receivers, with the Tyler Lockett's of the world, and so on, to impact the game. And but I give that to Lattimore. Simple answer, simple question. Again, my name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Digital Sports Producer. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. Make sure to reach out if you have any questions, comments, if you want to see something else in these live chats, if you like to go over specific topics, anything like that. Again, make sure to check out the game over on ESPN. Tune up to the broadcast with Mike Haas, Deuce McAllister over on WWL AM 870, FM 105.3. And we'll see what happens. Peace. If I can get this video. I have a video. I always forget to get it ready. Anyway, here you go.